we touched briefly on it there with you in training, but I think it'd be interesting to see, like, so you talk about like trying to fit in with setting in your job, but also like when it comes to projects and you in training, are you someone that sets out and like trains specifically for projects? Like with Big Bang, you were saying you like diet wise and lifestyle wise, you weren't keen to change that much. When it came to training, are you very like specific training, or before long hope were you like specific, I'm gonna just climb really loose stuff and get vomited on by local birds?
I mean, my intention had been to do some loose climbing at Gogarth. In North Wales I've got Gogarth on my doorstep and Red Wall, but Red Wall's bird banned from I think mid-February. And I just didn't get down to Gogarth at all before this route. So that had been some of my training plan. None of my training went the way it was supposed to. So I actually ended up getting really ill before this trip as well. So I just didn't really get to do anything what I would have liked to have done. So I'm probably going to get scared on the laser Jossie pitches, to be honest. The little bit of trad leading that I've done has been an eye-opener this year so far. Because I just find it takes a bit to get your rhythm going and to get your eye in on the gear and to trust it again. With Big Bang, for the first year, I kind of just went and tried to climb as much different stuff as possible. So I had like other projects on the go. And I did like a little bit of fingerboarding and a little bit of core. And then in the second year, when I was kind of getting a bit more focused on that, just time efficient wise, because like I said, I can't really train that intensely around setting, and like sometimes I'd come home and I'd be too tired to go to the wall. So I found like the biggest thing for me was doing home core workouts, and setting up a fingerboard style replica of the route.
Do go into this. How was it a fingerboard replica?
Well, I mean, you're never going to replicate a route exactly. But I was doing like 5 on 2 off, so I was never off the fingerboard for very long. But I was kind of trying to mimic the grip type that I had on the fingerboard that roughly equated to the sequence on Big Bang. It's like starting from the very ground, but obviously feet off. And I'd like add 8 to 10 kilos max, because it's enough weight difference that everything then, when I didn't have any weight on me, was going to feel like really positive, and I had my feet on, so it's an extra bonus. But rather than like coming off the fingerboard and resting in between your sets, I was staying on the fingerboard and trying to shake out in the same way for the same length of time that I would have been on the route for. So it made it kind of very specific, and that seemed to work. That seemed to be the most effective training I think I've ever done for a route. It was efficient and it was short, and it kind of got the job done. And it was something that I could manage fairly regularly. It was one of the things that sometimes I could do after a training session without weight. Yeah. And then when I was home and fresh and not setting, I could do it with a bit of added weight.
I don't think I've ever heard of that kind of training on a fingerboard. So do like, when you say that, do you like imagine like, so you're like, so the 2 starting holes are like these 2 big jugs?
Like jugs like that. So on the big jugs, and then sometimes I'd be on the slopers, but they'd have a little bit of a pinch. So I'd like pinch in instead, or like, but I would never be on like the 2. So I'd never be doing repeater style, like same hands on same holds. Like one hand might be on a 2-finger pocket, and then the other was on the slopey pinch, or like on a crimp in a pocket, or it just varied it up. But I think it kind of meant that it was less intense on the fingers as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's quite cool. One thing, did you notice? Well, let's say when you have a project like, well, I think Big Bang is just the easy go-to. So let's say when you were like trying Big Bang, did you find when you were route setting, were you like nearly like found yourself like setting in that style just because that was the route in mind, where you're like, oh crap, I've just set the crux of Big Bang for the 6th time in the Brighton Wall?
There were a few moments when I was on the ropes where I was like, oh, I'm just going to set like an easy version of the Big Bang sequence, because it was so ingrained in my head. But you're never going to fully replicate a route in the same way indoors, or like a boulder problem. It's always going to be slightly different. But I didn't try not to do it too often, because obviously you don't want to get a reputation going to a wall of like, well, she's just set the same route again in 6 different walls in the same week.
Well, now I imagine Walls would love that if you go and sell like a 6A version of the Big Bang.
Yeah, with like massive jugs.
You could do, I bet a Wall would be well up for this. You could do like an escalation, so 6A version, 6B, 6C, 7A, all the way to 9A. And it's like any punter can just start off in the 6A and work their way up to 9A.
They might get a bit bored of the same moves in different styles, in different holds after a while.